Hi there. Welcome to the Soulful Shift podcast. My name is Andrea Horvath. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you've been listening to me for a while, you may have noticed that I haven't had a new podcast episode for a little while now. And in this episode, I'm going to explain what you can expect moving forward, as well as why did I take the pause. And I'm going to talk about what's been going on in my life and in my business. And the reason why I'm going to share all of this is because everything I teach, everything I do, is because I've lived it. I am the embodiment of my work. And so when I share what I've been through, the process, it actually mirrors the process that I help others come to in alignment. My clients often tell me that they love it when I give them examples. So I teach them a concept, teach them what they're doing, and then I can give a real live example. So that's what I want to do here for you. If you feel like you're out of alignment in some way, or maybe you're even just questioning, am I out of alignment in my career in some way? I can talk you through the process and have it shown to you in like a real life version. So it makes more sense because here's the thing, not a lot of people are talking about what I'm talking about. And I don't know anybody who's talking about it like the way I am because this is lived. This is not something I was taught in a course. I figured all these things out through trial and error when I started this path 20 years ago almost. So I said, what can you expect moving forward? Well, I've been in business for about 6 or 7 years. And the basis of all my work has been and always will be helping people lead them back to themselves, to your soul essence. We were all brought into this world, conditioned to think a certain way, to perform, to do all these things, to try to fit in. And we're at a place on this planet right now where really it's the majority of people by this point in 2025 have realized it's not working. They're tired of trying to fit in. Tired of doing all the shoulds. Because here's the thing, you can look successful on paper, you can look brilliant, and look, you've got it all together on paper. But many people are realizing it's not worth it if you don't actually feel successful or you're having to self-abandon. So that's never changing. That's not going to ever change in what I do. However, who I'm serving now is changing. I have helped people change careers within corporate, and I've helped people transition out of corporate. That's been my main focus about the last 18 months. Where I'm shifting to now is actually supporting those conscious corporate leaders who know they want to stay in corporate. However, they know they're not reaching their full potential. So they may want a promotion, they may want a raise, they may just want the recognition that they already should have received by now, whether that's accolades or a pay raise. So it's that person that's already in corporate wants to stay there. So the process of what I'm doing is very, very similar. Again, it's helping different people. So if you're listening to this right now, whether you're somebody who's listened to me for a while or a new listener, a lot of the material I've shared before in prior episodes are still very relatable. Of course, many are geared towards leaving corporate. However, the concepts are very similar because the basis of what I do is bringing you back to yourself, bringing yourself back into alignment. But moving forward, it will be focusing on those conscious corporate leaders. Okay. So that's what you can expect from me moving forward. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually creating 4 episodes. It's going to be 4 episodes, and I'm calling them the Rebirth. And that's because this is what I've gone through this year, going through this process of realigning myself. So what I actually did was earlier this year, it was about March, April-ish. I'm really bad to remember exact dates, but it was somewhere around March and April. I realized I was out of alignment in my business, and I ended up taking quite a step back from my business to figure out why I was out of alignment. So I'm going to be sharing in these 4 episodes what that process looked like. What did I do over the next 6 months to bring myself fully into alignment? Now, it's going to be broken up into 4 different episodes. So they're going to be as short as I can make them. So you can just have like a quick listen while you're on your commute or whatnot, or you can binge listen to them. But the key here is I'm going to walk you through the process because this is the same and very similar process that I walk my clients through. However, I want to make something very, very clear before I dive into this. I have been doing this work for a long time. I started moving into alignment almost 20 years ago. This is old hat for me. So when I talk about me taking like a giant leap back from my business, if that scares you, like the process is the same, whether you're doing something a lot more minor or big, it's the same process. I have been told a number of times now this year, like, wow, you took a step back. That's like most people would never do that. That's really brave. That's really courageous. And I don't really see it that way, of course, because I'm just listening to my soul and following my alignment. However, I am fully aware that if you haven't been doing this work, it can seem that way. So I want to give that caveat. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do what she did exactly. No, not at all. You can do this in a much smaller scale, but the process is the key point here. Okay, so on this first episode right now, what I want to do is explain how did I get here? Because a lot of times people don't necessarily know like what's really going on with me. Like how do I even like identify that I'm out of alignment, or is this just a period I'm going through? Is it going to get better? Because that's often a lot what we tell ourselves. It's going to get better when. It's going to get better when. Like how do you actually know when it's just temporary or you are legitimately out of alignment? So, what happened with me is it was probably fall 2024, in around there somewhere, late summer, early fall, when I started to feel not as excited about my business. Now, I'm a very ambitious person. I'm a total type A personality. I am a hard worker. I have no problem showing up and doing things. Like I love creating. I'm in it. So for me to feel a little less motivated, a little less inspired, a little less excited, it was interesting to note. I'm like, this is not, it's a sign. And I don't get upset about it. I just go, oh, this is interesting. I've become very, very good at observing what's going on within me and in my life without getting attached to it and creating meaning to it. So I was just in the this is interesting phase. So I started to explore, well, maybe there's a new program or like something I need to do in my business. Like I love doing podcasts, but maybe there's something else I need to be doing besides that. Like what could it be? So I went and did a lot of exploring to see, well, what could it be, right? And I made a number of shifts and I enjoyed those shifts. I did a couple of masterclass series and a challenge, and I did a couple of different things. Now, you can relate this to your corporate career. It's the same thing, right? Like we can try different things in our life to figure out why we're out of alignment. But this is what I did. But what I started to notice that it wasn't making me feel good. So I'd feel good in a moment. Like I'd feel like, oh, I'm excited about this new thing I'm doing. And then I was like, this isn't it. And this kept going on for a number of months. And then what I started to do was I went, okay, like I looked ahead 2 or 3 years, and where I was heading was basically becoming a coach and an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs full time. Like I was helping people transition to becoming entrepreneurs. But then I saw like the next step is actually helping people like fully go into that and help people who've already been entrepreneurs. And when I looked at that road, it didn't feel like me. It just, nothing wrong with it, of course, but this is all about alignment. And this did not feel like my path. And so that was when I really started to question things like, if I don't like the path I'm on, like, how, of course, I'm not getting excited. Of course, I'm losing energy. And it's so important to notice that we don't have to hate our lives, hate our careers, or hate anything to be out of alignment. Like many years when I first started to come into alignment, that was the case. Like I was miserable. My life was a mess. Like something needs to change. It was like glaring me in the face. But as you go through and you become more and more in alignment, it's no longer about life is awful. It's more about, does this light me up? I mean, there was nothing quote unquote wrong in my business. I was still enjoying my client work, right? Completely. I was still successful in it. I was still making money in it. I was doing all the things. It's not like I was sitting there going, this is awful. But what I noticed is my baseline energy was coming down. So I wasn't as energized. I started to lean out. Whereas before, I would stay excited throughout the afternoon of my workday. I was like, getting a little bit tired in the afternoon." Like, just these little shifts. Or I would notice my body tense up. When I something would happen in my business, I notice my body would tense up, and I'm very, very tuned in to myself. And so when those things happen, I listen. I'm like, okay, and I observe it. And again, it's just observing this. And so a lot of times when we're identifying when we are out of alignment, it is just noticing these subtle shifts. I think often we think it's this big thing, but it's not. It's kind of like the frog in the water, that analogy where you have a frog in water and you put it on the stove and the water is cold and the frog is totally happy and doesn't realize it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. That's what happens when you start to move out of alignment. It happens gradually. You just kind of start to notice these little shifts. So, right now, if you're wondering, am I out of alignment? Just to start to notice, do you feel as good as you used to? Right? Just start to observe these things. And here's the thing though, it is sometimes harder to identify when, again, things are good on paper. And here's the thing, we can go into this trap of going, well, I'm much better than this person. Or people might say to us, oh my gosh, you're doing amazing. But it really is how you feel on the inside and honoring how you actually feel about what's going on. And then what happened is one day I had tried a bunch of different things and I asked, like, what could I do next? What do I do next? And I had this overwhelming sense and this overwhelming knowing of, I don't want to do anything. And it was startling to hear that answer to me because I'm a very motivated person, very ambitious. But it was my soul telling me something. And I've been doing this work long enough to know I need to listen. So I leaned right out of my business at that point. And I'm going to be talking about in future episodes what that looked like and what I did and the entire process that I walked through. And remember, I've done this enough times to know to listen to that voice that said to me, it's time to lean out. This isn't something I necessarily would have done 10, 15 years ago. But this is the process. Listening, I call this the soulful shift, right? And it's really moving from your ego and your linear mind and all the conditioning and listening to yourself and trusting yourself. And again, I'm going to explain this process as I go through episodes 2, 3, and 4. But I had that moment and then I sat with it for about, I don't know, 24 to 48 hours. It was more like 24 or 36 hours. And the more I sat with it, the more I knew that's what I needed to do. So that's what I did. I leaned out of my business. I kept it running in many ways, and I'll talk about that in the next episode. But I pulled right out of it, worked on a very part-time basis while I did the process that I'm going to explain. So in episode 2, I'm actually going to dive into, well, what did I do next? Like, this is the next step, right? How did I actually navigate moving forward? But at the end of this episode, what I want to leave you with is, if you are sitting here thinking to yourself, well, I may or may not be out of alignment. How do I even know it's not temporary? Because that's a really important question. Most of the time, I have experienced that it's not temporary. If you feel like you're out of alignment, as humans, we love to tell ourselves a story. And I know I've done this, never any judgment here, that things are going to change. Or when this one thing shifts, it'll all be better again, right? Something important to note is that your soul always wants you to expand. So our ego doesn't like change at all, but our soul wants us to expand. Now you can understand the conflict there. Like, to go from ego to soul, like your ego's going, no, stay exactly where you are and who you are. And your soul's going, no, expand, expand, expand. Is knowing that we are meant to expand, that what was in alignment with you a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, it could have been so in alignment. It could have been so perfect. And often we tell ourselves, well, we just need to go back to that. Something needs to shift so we can go back. And what we're not doing is we're not actually acknowledging that we've expanded beyond something. We love to think we can go back. You can never go back, truly, because each and every day we're a different person than we were the day before. And because your soul wants to expand, it is entirely possible that what fits you and what was in alignment with you, even 6 months ago, it's possible it's no longer in alignment with you in some way, shape, or form. This is not just temporary. That is a big, I'll say it's a big nuance, a subtle nuance, but it's a big shift for a lot of people because we live in a world that says, let's go back to the way it was. It will never go back to the way it was. You're constantly expanding. So I've got 3 questions for you to ask yourself. Where is your baseline energy compared to how it was 6 months, a year ago, 2 years ago, however long you want to go back? Do you have as much energy as you used to? Are you as excited about things as you used to be? Are you leaning in? Like, how are you responding to your everyday? Where is your baseline energy? And remember, this can be hard to track because of that frog in the water. It happens gradually. But if you look back, were you more excited 5 years ago than you are right now? Chances are there's something out of alignment. First thing you do. Second thing, take where you're at right now, how you're dealing with your career, how you're dealing with all of it, how you're responding, how you're being in it, how you're feeling in it. Now go ahead 2 years, 3 years, and you're on the same path. How does that feel? Just observe. Don't try to make any meaning of it. Don't try to go anywhere with it. What am I going to do? The brain loves to do that. Again, the next episodes, I'm going to talk about what happens next. And it's not trying to figure it out. It's actually the last thing you want to do, just to give you a little hint of what's ahead. But look ahead of where you're at right now. That was powerful for me. I could see that where I was going was not where I wanted to be. Very, very clear. Third thing I want you to look at is, are you leaning out? Are you procrastinating? Are you avoiding? Are you slowing down? Are you finding yourself distracted? Now, here's a nuance to this. It's not necessarily just in your career, because sometimes what happens is, especially if you're in corporate, you've still got deadlines, you've still got all these expectations about what you're doing. And what can happen is we can go all in at work, but then we've given everything at work, and then our personal life starts to slide, our relationship slides, our health slides, all these other things start to slide because we are out of alignment at work. So it's not just looking at, are you leaning out of work? Are you leaning out of life? Are you disengaging from life? I know that's what I started to notice in myself. And again, I'm going to talk about that in the next episode, but I started noticing myself leaning out of other areas of my life. And I didn't like it. I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the trajectory of where I was going with those things. So I'm going to leave you with those 3 questions for now. And until episode 2, I will talk to you soon.